Hello, hello, hello. Thank you guys for joining us for another interview with King Solomon Entertainment, where we are committed to bringing you positive, wonderful content and controversial content on the KS News platform. Thank you for joining us for another interview with KS News. If you have not commented, you have not subscribed, have not connected with us, please do so at King Solomon Entertainment Media Group on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, as well as YouTube, James Clayton. Please subscribe. We want to say thank you to our partners and our sponsors, which is Heart to Heart for You, More Than Greenwood Foundation, as well as USC Black Alumni Association. So please, God, continue to support. We're here with a wonderful, great guest again on KS News. She's no stranger to our show. The executive director of the MOBB, Mothers of Black Boys. We're so glad to have Vanessa McCullers again today. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much. Pretty much want to ask you a couple of questions as far as currently the state of where we are in the struggle, and to give a kind of a reassessment of just the concessions that have been made with Breonna Taylor case and other
Mhm.
cases facing police brutality and things of that sort, with the passing of the no-knock warrant
Mhm.
in Louisville, but also
Yeah.
where is the still there's protests going on all over the world, and they
Mhm.
continue to move forward. So if you want to kind of chime in on that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, here's the truth of it. I mean, I think everyone has seen some major tides change over the last few months now. I think, starting with George Floyd and how quickly that case moved forward and gained momentum. Obviously, a lot of that was due to the protests that took place on a global level. And then, of course, as you mentioned, Breonna Taylor, now, we do have to keep in mind that that is a situation where, quite frankly, to a certain extent, justice was not served. And justice was not served because her killers have not been punished for the crime that they committed. And I think that a lot of, this stems back to the lack of accountability for for police officers and members of law enforcement when they choose to use excessive use of force when working with or approaching black and brown citizens, whether they be male or female. I think that one of the things that is clearly noted in Brianna's case is that it took so long to get some movement in her case. And a lot of people argue is that, it wasn't clear cut, the fact that the officers were fired at. But none of that is neither here nor there because the way in which they approached her dwelling to begin with was not a manner that we consider just, not from the perspective of someone who is there meant to protect and serve. Um, and that took forever for us to get to that point. Whereas in George Floyd, yes, it did take protests all around the world, but very quickly we saw some movement in that case. And we've seen movement in a number of other cases. But I think for us, the biggest movement that we have seen is where is looking at this from a federal level. I think that the election is definitely, it couldn't have been timed better, if you will, because I think all of us are looking to hold our officials, both on a local level and on a national, statewide, and a national level. We're looking to hold them accountable for the promises that they are making during this election. And of course, the biggest thing for us is that we want to see some protection for all people, but in particular, and most especially, our Black and brown people.
No, absolutely, because you thought the 14th Amendment was very clear on doing that, but apparently there is this duality that continues to be perpetuated and done in the system throughout, and it's unfortunate. But I was just talking with another interviewee as far as obtaining all these rights, especially now with the Ice Cube controversy, obtaining these rights. But what about protecting these rights? And this
Mhm.
whole narrative of asking for the same thing over and over again, because there's this reversion of the
Mm-hmm.
rights we once had. And so all of these types of things that plagues the Black African American community is really it's really sad that the duality continue to surface, and this non-existent protection for African Americans.
The duality will always exist.
Yeah.
The duality will always exist because of the way in which the rules were written.
Yeah.
Those rules, the Constitution of the United States was not written with Black Americans in mind. We have to keep that in, we have to think about that when we think about all of the rules and the legislature that was put forward by the forefathers. I will not say our forefathers, by the forefathers of the United States. None of them, not one of those pieces of Constitution were created with Black people in mind. We have to remember that at that time, when the Constitution and some of those amendments came into play, we were considered property. None of that has really changed. Our vote still isn't necessarily equal the way it should be equal. If it were, we would not have the electoral college the way we do. We have to keep in mind that until there are some radical changes in this country, from our laws, our bylaws, the structure and foundation of this country in itself are changed, we will never be considered equal.
Yes,
All
ma'am.
we can do is we can take the little pieces that they give us when they give it to us.
Yes, ma'am. And with that understanding that and the narrative that you speak of, which I hear before and I hear all the time, when you look about in regard to the Constitution as it was written for who in mind it was written for, that man does not exist in the United States at all. So the people that upholding this archaic Constitution, they don't even it didn't even include them. So
Correct.
to me, it becomes really a conundrum, because it's like, who is perpetuating this, and this non-existing of what the Constitution don't even mirror who is upholding it. So how are you going to really plague the African American community to them same guidelines when we're not even nobody that it protects exists today? And in addition to that, if you want to do the property narrative, it's time now that we really focus on what really is truth and really is also valid. We are not only the progeny of the slave, but we also the progeny of who that Constitution do talk about and cover, which is the colonist British slave, 1% slave on property owner, slave master. We are the progeny of those as well. So at the end of the day, I just this whole continuity of we don't have proper protection. Our voting rights is dubious. No one else's is. When I just don't. This don't make any sense to me. When 1866 we had the Voting Rights Act, and then in 1964 we asked for the Voting Rights Act again. Like, where's the protection? We asking for the same thing over. Where is the protection of that? And why is this continue to be reverted? Even the duality of the law and police brutality, it's like everyone else don't have a problem with it, but it's like they're focusing. We are the focus. We are profile. We are the target, and this everybody else is protected but us. And it's really it's terrible. It's terrible. But so I just confusing to me, because it's like, even with the Ice Cube contract to Black America, and the notion that no one else was asking for, or he said he didn't see anyone else asking for these things, and so he stepped up and he made it it was a natural, organic thing. And people, and he was on Roland Martin and also the other media outlet, that people were, and grassroots like yourself and others that were in legislative actions for this, it do exist. And Roland said even in 2018, it was voted for in Congress, but it was struck down by Senate. And so he was encouraging them to get together and come up with a concise list and move forward. But he did definitely brought up good points. Whoever's in office, we need to be talking to whoever's in office. That this has to happen. But it's unfortunate, but the struggle continue to exist, like you said, and we have to continue to fight for what they give us or what we're up against currently. And it's unfortunate, but it seems like we still fighting for the same thing or the stuff that we thought we already had. But in
Yeah, and
regards to, no, go ahead, please.
there are, as I mentioned before, there are foundational flaws within the amendments, the Constitution itself, and the amendments to the Constitution. But what we can do is we can, as I mentioned before, use our voting rights to put people in place that, you know, their rhetoric is about protecting our rights. You know, their rhetoric is about holding police officers accountable for their misgivings, and also about providing equality. So if that is the case, you know, what we have done for our moms is that we've created a candidate questionnaire that allows them to reach out to their regional, their local um, uh, uh, officers, sorry, and ask them certain questions as it relates to our organization and the things that we hold dear. Everything from the school to prison pipeline to juvenile justice and teen sentencing to, you know, questions around whether or not they support the use of deadly force by police officers, what their position is on the no-knock warrant. All of these kind of ladder up to something that's really big and really important that's coming down the pipeline, and that is the Justice and Policing Act, right? So we know that under this current administration, the chances of the Justice and Policing Act being passed it's like, it's not going to happen. Let's just be real, right? It's just not the way that this current administration is set up. It's not set up to put things like this to pass. They don't want there to be any, you know, use of body cams that we can hold officers accountable to. They don't want us to hold police officers accountable for the misgivings that they do to us. So, but the party that is interested in supporting this, the party that is interested in making sure that we have those rights, those are the people that we need to hold accountable if and when it comes to pass that they are in office. We need to make sure that every single thing that they promised us as it pertains to the Justice and Policing Act is followed through on, because this is how we exercise the power that we yield when we go to the polls. And when they don't follow through on what they have promised, then it is our right and it is our responsibility to hold them to task.
Yes. And I think that's bottom line, because even the narrative that's always been spent in media that we this let's come out, if you don't vote you can't complain, or that whole motto, as if we have not come out consistently in records numbers. And every time they have an election, and it's all this scrutiny is built around it, is let's record numbers. We have come out consistently under Clinton, under Obama, in record numbers in voting. And still in all, this narrative is being spawned that we do not come out to vote, and we do. But under both of these administrations have been very unclear. You've been watching the debates, very unclear about the agenda from both sides, and what they have is planned for Black America. But again, regardless of who is in office, we definitely have to be ready for the long haul, the long fight, because how you get these things passed and how you get these things enacted is a whole nother giant. And we see that from the grassroots organizations, as well as, I remember the movie Stevens Bryson did with Michael B. Jordan, showed that process of equal justice, of how it is a brutal process to get it done and to get things actually protected and enacted to where it becomes legislative, so that's so
It is a long process, and we have to be in it for the long haul. I must say, to your point about voting, we can agree to disagree. We have come out in large numbers. However, and those numbers, those record numbers that you speak of, they are in record numbers in comparison to our counterparts. However, we still are not doing the job that we need to be doing. We still need to come out in full force. There are more Black Americans that are not voting than there are ones that are voting.
Mm.
And so we need to take responsibility for that and not and hold each other accountable for that, which is why I think a lot of the grassroots organizations are speaking up loudly as they can right now about how important it is to go and vote. But let's be real. When we wake up on November 4th, nothing will have changed. When we wake up the day after inauguration, nothing will have changed. Nothing is actually going to change, as I said, until we hold those who have made those promises to task.
Yeah.
It's on us, and we are all we got.
Yep. That's the real fight. And then once we obtain those rights, who going to get them to protect it and to make sure that we get to enjoy them and they stay and not the
Absolutely.
reversal of it. So yeah, so I really appreciate you and everything you guys are doing and all the wonderful work that your organization is doing. This is Vanessa McCullers, the executive director of the National Association of Mothers of Black Boys, doing wonderful work on the front line. We thank you so much, Vanessa. Just continue to do what you do. And a friend to the show, definitely gonna have you back. I love when you come on. Very insightful. Just continue to definitely, do what you do. And so definitely vote too, right? Vote November the 3rd.
Absolutely.
Vote early because I
Yeah.
voted early, so we voted early, and the numbers are good. We voted early. We getting there. We getting up there.
Yeah.
Everybody voted early. So thank you so much for everything that you
Sure.
do, and talk to you soon next time.
Thank
Okay. Thank you
you.
guys so much. Make sure you share the video, subscribe, and comment. Thank you guys so much. Till next time. King Simon
Thanks. Have a good
Entertainment News. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye bye.